I never thought I'd find love in the shallow end of a swimming pool. But there I was, 34 years old, a respected horse racing commentator who couldn't swim to save her life. The irony wasn't lost on me. Lana Reed, the voice of Richmond Downs, terrified of water. "Keep your head above water, Ms. Reed," the instructor called out. I gripped the pool's edge, my blonde hair already dripping despite my best efforts to keep it dry. That's when I noticed her, tall, athletic, with wavy brown hair pulled into a messy bun. She was struggling just as much as I was. "Damn chlorine," she muttered, wiping her eyes. "I'm better with horses than water." "Horses?" I couldn't help but ask. "I'm in the racing industry too." "Stella Mitchell," she said, offering a dripping hand. "I train at Richmond Downs." "The new miracle worker everyone's talking about?" I tried to sound professional while doggy paddling pathetically. "I've commented on some of your winners. We ended up being the worst students in class, but the best at making excuses." After the lesson, we found ourselves at the coffee shop across the street, still damp and laughing about our shared aquaphobia. "I can handle 1,000-pound thoroughbreds," Stella said, "but put me in 3 feet of water and I'm helpless." Her blue eyes sparkled when she laughed, and I caught myself staring longer than I should. There was something magnetic about her confidence, even in vulnerability. Our coffee date, was it a date? Got cut short by my phone buzzing. The track manager needed me back at the commentary booth. When I arrived, there was a brown paper package on my desk. No return address, just my name in typed letters. Inside, I found a stack of old racing photographs, yellowed with age. They showed Richmond Downs in its glory days, but something felt off about them. In one photo, a jockey's face was circled in red ink. On the back, someone had written, "Some victories deserve a closer look." I spread the photos across my desk, that uneasy feeling growing in my stomach. One image caught my eye, a horse crossing the finish line in 1985, but the shadow it cast didn't match its position. Before I could examine it closer, my phone buzzed again. A text from Stella. "Same time next week, fellow water warrior?" I smiled, typing yes, while trying to ignore how my heart skipped. But as I glanced back at the mysterious photos, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just stepped into something much deeper than the pool's shallow end. That night, I dreamed of murky water and finish lines that kept moving. But mostly, I dreamed of blue eyes and a laugh that made me forget I was afraid of drowning. The photos haunted me all week. Between race calls, I found myself studying them obsessively. The 1985 race stood out. Something about the winning horse's markings didn't match the stable records. I'd seen enough photo finishes to know when something wasn't right. "You look like you've seen a ghost," Stella said at our next swimming lesson. She'd switched to a navy swimsuit that made her eyes look even bluer. I tried not to stare. "Can I show you something?" I asked after class. We sat at the poolside, our feet dangling in the water. I pulled out the photos, watching her expression change as she examined them. "This jockey?" She pointed to the circled face. "That's old Jack Murphy. He disappeared after this race. Everyone assumed he'd just retired." Her hand brushed mine as she reached for another photo. That simple touch sent warmth through my entire body, despite the cool water at our feet. "Look at this horse's blaze," she continued, professional mode engaged. "It's slightly different in the winner's circle photo, almost like it's not the same horse," I finished. Our eyes met, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. We moved our investigation to her office at the stables. The space smelled of leather and hay, with ribbons and trophies lining the walls. Stella pulled out old racing records, her fingers tracing down yellowed pages. "Here," she said, leaning close. "The winning horse that day was registered as Midnight Runner. But look at these breeding records." I caught a whiff of her shampoo, something floral and subtle. "Focus, Lana." "The bloodlines don't match," I said, forcing myself to look at the papers. "Someone switched horses mid-race," Stella whispered. "But why send these photos now?" We worked late into the evening, spreading documents across her desk. At some point, she ordered Chinese takeout. Our fingers kept meeting over spring rolls and ancient paperwork. "You've got sauce," she said softly, reaching up to wipe the corner of my mouth. Her touch lingered a second too long to be casual. The stable creaked around us, and somewhere a horse whinnied. Through the window, the setting sun painted everything gold. Stella looked beautiful in that light, her hair falling loose from its bun. "We should practice our swimming strokes," I said, breaking the moment. since we're both still terrible." She laughed, but her eyes stayed serious. "I think we're both getting better at staying afloat." On my drive home, I couldn't stop thinking about her touch, her laugh, the way she'd looked in that golden hour light. But when I arrived at my apartment, another package waited at my door. Inside, more photos, this time with a note: "Keep digging and you'll both drown." I sat on my couch, photos scattered around me, torn between the thrill of unraveling this mystery and the fear of what we might find. But mostly, I thought about Stella, and how I was already in too deep to stop now, in more ways than one. That night, I dreamed of horse races where the finish line kept moving, of deep water that wasn't scary anymore because she was there, holding my hand as we swam. The threatening note made my skin crawl, but I couldn't tell if I was more unsettled by that or by how much I wanted to see Stella again. My answer came the next morning at the pool, when I opened my locker. "Stay away from old races," the note read, typed on the same paper as before. My hands shook as I pulled out my swimming gear. "Everything okay?" Stella appeared behind me, her presence instantly calming. "You look pale." I showed her the note, her face hardened, those blue eyes turning stormy. "Someone's following you," she said, stepping closer. "This isn't just about old photos anymore." During our lesson, she stayed near me in the pool, our bodies occasionally brushing underwater. Each touch felt electric, even through the chlorinated water. We were both improving, though neither of us would win any medals. "I need to check on a new mare this afternoon," she said as we dried off. "Come with me?" The stables were quiet that afternoon, most trainers gone home. Stella led me to a beautiful bay mare, her coat gleaming in the dim light. "This is Morning Glory," she said, running her hand along the horse's neck. "She's racing next week." Thunder rumbled outside, a spring storm rolling in. The mare shifted nervously, and Stella moved to calm her. I watched, mesmerized by how gracefully she worked. Then the lights went out. "Stella?" I called out, my voice shaky. "Right here," she said, her hand finding mine in the darkness. "The breaker box is—" A loud crash from outside cut her off. The mare whinnied in fear, and something heavy slammed against the stable door. "That wasn't thunder," Stella whispered, pulling me behind her. We heard footsteps, then the sound of someone running away. When we checked outside, we found Morning Glory's water trough overturned, and worse, traces of something that looked like antifreeze gleaming on the ground. "If she'd drunk that." Stella's voice trailed off. Rain was falling now, washing away the evidence. We stood under the stable's overhang, watching the storm. Stella was shaking, though I didn't think it was from the cold. "Someone's trying to stop us," I said softly. She turned to face me, rain dripping from her hair. "They'll have to try harder than that." Maybe it was the adrenaline, or the way the lightning illuminated her face, but something snapped inside me. I reached up, cupped her face in my hands, and kissed her. For a moment, the world stopped. Her lips were soft, tasting of chlorine and rain. She pulled me closer, deepening the kiss, and everything else faded away, the threat, the storm, the mystery. There was only this, only her. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathless. Lightning flashed again, and I saw the same wonder in her eyes that I felt. "I've wanted to do that since the shallow end," she whispered. "Me too." We stayed there, forehead to forehead, as the storm raged around us. But a new note, slipped under the stable door, shattered our moment. "Next time, it won't be the horse." I felt Stella's arms tighten around me. "We need to find out who's behind this," she said. "We will," I promised, though my voice shook. Together. That night, as I lay in bed listening to the continuing storm, I touched my lips, still feeling our kiss. Someone was trying to scare us away from the truth, but they didn't understand. They'd given us something more powerful than fear. They'd given us each other. The morning after our kiss, I was reviewing the old photos for the 100th time when something caught my eye. In the background of one image, a man stood watching the suspicious race. He had Stella's eyes. My phone buzzed. "Need to talk," Stella's text read. "My office, now." I found her pacing, looking like she hadn't slept. "I showed the photos to my father," she said without preamble. "He recognized everything." My heart sank. "Including himself in this one?" I held up the photo I'd been studying. She nodded, running her fingers through her hair. "He was there that day. He." He knew about the switch. The silence between us felt heavy. I wanted to hold her, but uncertainty held me back. "Tell me," I said instead. "He was just starting as a trainer," she spoke softly. "They threatened to ruin him if he talked. He had a family to protect." Before I could respond, my phone rang. The network executive's voice was cold. "Ms. Reed, we need to discuss your recent activities." Someone had sent them photos of me and Stella in the stables, of us examining old records, of our kiss in the rain. The message was clear: back off, or lose everything. "Your reputation is valuable to us," he said. "It would be a shame to lose you over personal indiscretions." My hands shook as I ended the call. Stella watched me, her face pale. "They're trying to silence you." "They're trying to silence us," I corrected, moving closer to her. "But I won't let them." She met me halfway, pulling me into her office chair with her. "My father kept records," she whispered against my hair. "He documented everything just in case." We spent hours going through her father's old papers, our bodies pressed together in the cramped space. Each touch, each brush of skin against skin, sent electricity through me. "Look at this," she said, her breath warm against my neck. She pointed to a list of names, trainers, jockeys, officials, all connected to that race in 1985. "Half these people are still at the track," I realized. "Including Thompson Blake," she said. "He's on the racing board now. The same board that could end both our careers." Night had fallen by the time we finished. The stable was quiet except for the occasional soft nicker of horses. Stella's office felt like our own private world. "Stay," she whispered, her fingers tracing my jawline. "Please." I knew we should focus on the investigation, on the threats, on saving our careers. But when she kissed me, slow and deep, nothing else mattered. Later, tangled together on the small couch in her office, we talked about everything and nothing. About horses and swimming lessons, about fears and dreams, about the truth we were uncovering. "Whatever happens," she said, tracing patterns on my arm, "we face it together." A noise outside startled us, footsteps, then silence. By the time we reached the door, whoever it was had gone. But they'd left their message. The photos and documents we'd been reviewing were scattered across the floor, some torn, others marked with red X's. I felt Stella's hand slip into mine. "They're getting desperate," she said. "Good," I replied, squeezing her hand. "Desperate people make mistakes." That night, driving home, I couldn't stop thinking about how perfectly we fit together, how right it felt. But I also couldn't shake the feeling that we were running out of time. Someone wanted to bury this story, and us with it. But they didn't understand. Some stories refuse to stay buried, and some connections can't be broken. We were both. The morning started with chaos at the stables. I was in the commentary booth when Stella called, her voice tight with panic. "It's Storm Chaser," she said. "He's sick, really sick." I found her in the stable, kneeling beside her prize stallion. Storm Chaser lay on his side, breathing heavily. The vet was already there, drawing blood samples. "Someone got to him," Stella whispered when I reached her. "He was fine last night." The vet confirmed our fears, signs of poisoning. Not enough to kill, but enough to ensure he wouldn't race in the upcoming Derby qualifier. Someone knew exactly what they were doing. "First morning glory's water, now this," I said, watching Stella stroke the horse's neck. "They're escalating." We spent the morning with Storm Chaser, Stella monitoring his every breath while I made calls, canceling my commentary assignments. The network could wait. "Swimming lesson in an hour," I reminded her gently. "You need a break." She hesitated, but the stable hands promised to watch Storm Chaser. At the pool, the water felt different, like a sanctuary. We moved through our exercises, and I noticed how much stronger we'd both become. "Remember our first lesson?" Stella asked, floating beside me. I could barely put my face in the water. "Now look at us," I smiled, watching her glide smoothly across the pool. "Regular mermaids?" She caught my hand underwater, pulling me closer. "You make me brave," she whispered. The moment shattered when my phone buzzed poolside, another threatening text. "Horses aren't the only things that can be poisoned." Stella read it over my shoulder, her body tensing. "We need to end this." That night, we returned to the stables for a final check on Storm Chaser. The horse was improving, but Stella insisted on staying late. I couldn't leave her alone. Rain started again, drumming on the stable roof. We sat in Storm Chaser's stall, shoulders touching, listening to his steady breathing. "My father wants to come clean," she said suddenly. "About everything." I turned to face her, seeing the worry in her eyes. "That could change everything." "I know." She leaned in, her lips finding mine in the dim light. This kiss was different, desperate, needy, full of unspoken fears. We broke apart at the sound of footsteps, but it was just the night watchman doing his rounds. Still, it reminded us we weren't safe here. "Stay at my place tonight," I said, surprising myself with my boldness. "Please." The drive to my apartment was silent, charged with anticipation. Inside, Stella looked around curiously. It was her first time here. "It's very you," she said, smiling at my collection of racing memorabilia. I wanted to respond, but she was already pulling me close, her kisses growing more intense. We barely made it to the bedroom. Later, tangled in sheets and moonlight, she traced the freckles on my shoulder. "I've never felt like this," she admitted softly. "Me neither." I pulled her closer, breathing in her scent. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, another anonymous message, but this time, it wasn't just threats. It was a video of Stella's father from 1985, clearly showing his involvement in the scandal. "They're going to release it," Stella said, her voice breaking. I held her tighter. "Let them. We have something they don't." "What's that?" "The whole truth. And each other." Outside, the rain continued, but in my bed, with Stella in my arms, I felt untouchable. Tomorrow would bring more challenges, more threats, more battles. But tonight, we had this perfect moment of peace in the storm. I fell asleep listening to her heartbeat, knowing that whatever came next, we'd face it together. Some things were worth fighting for, worth risking everything for. She was one of them. Morning light filtered through my bedroom curtains, waking me to find Stella already dressed, studying more vintage photos spread across my dining table. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a detail I'd missed before. "The timer in these finish line photos, the timestamps don't match the official race records." Before I could respond, my phone lit up with a news alert. Someone had leaked photos of the 1985 race to the Richmond Times. The story was breaking, but they'd only revealed half-truths. "They're controlling the narrative," I said, scrolling through the article, making it look like a minor timing discrepancy instead of a full horse switch. Stella's phone rang, her father. "They're threatening to release the video," she said after hanging up. "Dad's terrified." We spent the morning gathering everything we had, photos, documents, timestamps. The pieces were there, but something was still missing. "We need the original race footage," I said. "The track must have archives." "In the old office building," Stella nodded. "Behind the grandstand." We waited until afternoon, when most staff would be focused on the day's races. The archive room was dusty, filled with boxes of old VHS tapes and film reels. "Here," Stella called out. 1985, summer season." A noise in the hallway made us freeze. Footsteps approached, then passed. We both released held breaths. "Got it," she said, pulling out a real canister. The sound of a key in the lock made us spin around. The door opened, revealing Thompson Blake himself. "Ladies," he said smoothly, "doing some historical research?" 2 security guards appeared behind him. "The archive room is restricted," Blake continued. "I'm afraid I'll have to confiscate any materials you've removed." "These aren't yours to take," Stella challenged, clutching the film reel. "Neither is this," a new voice said. We turned to see someone entering through the back door, holding a laptop, my laptop, stolen from my apartment. My heart sank. All our digital evidence was on that computer. "Your father made a wise choice 30 years ago," Blake said to Stella. "I suggest you do the same." The security guards stepped forward. In the chaos that followed, the film reel slipped from Stella's hands, clattering across the floor. One guard grabbed me while the other reached for Stella. "Run!" I shouted. She hesitated for a split second, our eyes meeting. Then she bolted through the back door. They let her go, focusing on me and the scattered evidence. Blake picked up the film reel, smiling coldly. "Such a shame," he said. "A promising career, ruined by amateur detective work." They escorted me out, but not before I saw them gathering everything we'd collected. Hours of work, gone in minutes. I found Stella waiting in my car, her face streaked with tears and fury. "They took everything," she said. "Not everything." I pulled out my phone, showing her the photos I'd managed to take of the film reel's label and serial number. "We know it exists now, and we know exactly who's trying to hide it." She leaned across the seat and kissed me hard. "You're brilliant," she whispered against my lips. "We need somewhere safe to regroup," I said. "They've already broken into my apartment." "I know a place," she replied. "But first, we need to talk to my father again. It's time he told us everything." As we drove away from the track, I caught Blake watching us in my rearview mirror. He thought he'd won, thought he'd scared us off. But he didn't understand what he was dealing with. This wasn't just about exposing a scandal anymore. This was about us, about protecting what we'd found together, about fighting for the truth we both believed in. And we were just getting started. Stella's father lived in a small house on the outskirts of Richmond, surrounded by empty paddocks. He opened the door before we could knock, looking older than his years. "I saw the news," he said, ushering us inside. "They're going to release everything." "Then beat them to it," Stella replied, her voice firm. "Tell us the truth, Dad, all of it." We sat in his living room, surrounded by faded photos of horses and long-ago victories. He poured himself a drink with shaking hands. "It wasn't just the one race," he began. "They had a system. Switch out horses that looked similar enough to pass inspection. The timestamps, the photos, all doctored." "Who's they?" I asked, recording everything on my phone. Blake was just a junior steward then. But he organized it all, made everyone involved feel special, chosen, until they were too deep to back out. Stella reached for my hand as her father continued. "The real money came from betting. They knew which horses would win because they controlled everything." "And Jack Murphy?" I prompted. "The jockey who disappeared?" His face darkened. "Jack threatened to expose them. Then his body was found in the river. They called it an accident." Stella's grip tightened on my hand. "Why didn't you say something?" "They showed me photos of you, sweetheart, at school, at home. Said accidents could happen to anyone." My phone buzzed, the network executive. "Ms. Reed, your suspension is effective immediately, pending investigation." Stella read the message over my shoulder, her jaw tightening. "They can't silence us all." Her father stood suddenly, disappearing into his study. He returned with a thick envelope. "I kept records," he said. "Dates, names, amounts, insurance in case they ever came after my family. Now they're coming after both of you." We spent hours going through the documents, bank statements showing suspicious transfers, letters threatening various people involved, photos of secret meetings. "This is enough to bring them down," I said. "It's enough to get someone killed," Stella's father corrected. Night had fallen by the time we left, the envelope heavy in my bag. In the car, Stella was quiet. "You okay?" I asked, reaching for her hand. "He kept this secret for so long," she said. "Lived with this fear. And now we end it," I finished. We drove to her apartment, knowing mine wasn't safe. Inside, she pulled me close, her kiss desperate and needy. "I can't lose you," she whispered against my lips. "You won't?" Later, tangled in her sheets, we planned our next move. The documents needed to be protected, copies made and distributed to trusted sources. "The racing commission meets next week," I said, tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. "We present everything then. Blake will try to stop us." "Let him try." My phone lit up with another message, a photo of us leaving her father's house, followed by a simple text. "Last chance." Stella read it and pulled me closer. "They're watching us." "Good," I replied, kissing her softly. "Let them see what real courage looks like." Outside, a car drove slowly past her building. We lay in the darkness, listening to its engine fade away. Tomorrow would bring more threats, more danger. But tonight, in her arms, I felt stronger than any fear. "Whatever happens," she whispered, "we're in this together." "Together," I agreed, holding her tighter. We fell asleep like that, wrapped in each other, surrounded by documents that could change everything. The truth had cost her father 30 years of peace. But some prices were worth paying, some fights worth fighting. And this fight was just beginning. The breakthrough came during our morning swim. We'd kept up our lessons, refusing to let fear change our routine. In the pool, Watching Stella glide through the water with newfound confidence, it hit me. The betting records, I said as we toweled off. Your father's documents show irregular patterns, but we need proof of where the money went. The old racing commission treasurer, Stella replied, her eyes lighting up. Sarah Martinez. She retired last year. We found Sarah living in a small apartment above a bookstore. She opened the door cautiously, recognition flickering in her eyes. I wondered when someone would come asking, she said, letting us in. Her living room was a paper fortress, boxes of documents everywhere. I kept everything, she explained, waiting for the right moment, the right people. She pulled out files spanning decades. Bank transfers, betting slips, handwritten notes, all pointing to an elaborate money laundering scheme. Blake wasn't the mastermind, Sarah revealed. He was just the face. The real power was Richard Conway. The current racing board chairman, Stella breathed. My phone buzzed, a message from the network. Meeting tomorrow to discuss your future. Sarah noticed our expressions. They're closing in? They're trying, I replied, taking Stella's hand. We spent hours copying documents, scanning everything we could. Sarah's records completed the puzzle, a perfect complement to Stella's father's evidence. Be careful, Sarah warned as we left. Conway doesn't just destroy careers, he destroys lives. Back at the track, we found Storm Chaser fully recovered. Stella checked him over while I watched from the stall door, admiring how gentle she was with him. Ready for tomorrow's race? I asked. Are you ready to call it? She countered, smiling. They suspended me, remember? Since when do you follow their rules? She crossed the stall and kissed me, tasting of chlorine and hope. A throat clearing interrupted us, one of the stable hands. Ms. Mitchell? Racing board wants to see you. Something about your training methods. Stella squeezed my hand before following him. I used the time to prepare for tomorrow's race, setting up my own recording equipment in a hidden corner of the commentary booth. When Stella returned, her face was tight with anger. They're questioning everything, my licenses, my methods, my relationships. I pulled her into my arms. They're scared. They should be. That evening, we made love with an intensity born of defiance and determination. Every touch was a promise, every kiss an act of rebellion. Call the race tomorrow, she whispered against my skin. Show them they can't silence you. Morning brought chaos. Storm Chaser was favorite to win, despite attempts to sabotage him. The stands were packed, the air electric with anticipation. I took my place in the commentary booth, unauthorized but unbowed. Below, Stella prepared Storm Chaser, every movement precise and confident. Security's coming, my assistant warned. Let them, I replied, putting on my headset. The horses lined up. I saw Blake and Conway in the owner's box, their faces darkening as my voice came over the speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Richmond Downs. Security reached the booth just as the race began, but they couldn't stop my voice, couldn't silence the truth ringing through every word of my commentary. Storm Chaser won by 3 lengths. In the winner's circle, Stella's eyes found mine. She smiled, radiant with victory and love. My phone buzzed one last time, Conway's number. My office, now. Stella appeared at my side, our fingers intertwining. We go together, she said. Walking toward Conway's office, evidence in hand, we were ready for whatever came next. They thought they could break us, silence us, separate us. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The Richmond Downs Charity Gala was in full swing when we arrived, the old grandstand transformed by twinkling lights and evening wear. Conway had chosen this public venue for our confrontation, probably thinking we wouldn't dare make a scene. Ready? Stella whispered, stunning in a midnight blue dress. Born ready, I replied, squeezing her hand. We'd spent the afternoon preparing, sending copies of our evidence to trusted journalists and law enforcement. Whatever happened tonight, the truth would come out. Conway spotted us first, his false smile never reaching his eyes. Ladies, so glad you could join us. Blake hovered nearby, looking nervous. Other board members watched from a distance, sensing the tension. Quite a race today, Conway continued. Though I believe you were suspended from commentary, Ms. Reed. Funny thing about suspensions, I said. They're only effective when they're legitimate. Stella moved closer to me, a subtle show of support. Her father stood across the room, watching with worried eyes. "Let's discuss this privately," Conway suggested, gesturing toward a side room. "No," Stella replied firmly. "Whatever you have to say it here." He studied us for a long moment. "Very well. Ms. Mitchell, your training license is revoked, effective immediately. Miss Reed, you're permanently banned from broadcasting." "On what grounds?" I challenged, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "Unprofessional conduct. Interference with track operations. Take your pick." I pulled out my phone, playing a recording from Sarah Martinez detailing years of corruption. Conway's face darkened. "You've been busy," he said quietly. "We have evidence of everything," Stella added. "The switched horses, the betting fraud, Jack Murphy's death." Blake stepped forward, panic in his eyes. "Richard, maybe we should." "Quiet," Conway snapped. More people were watching now. I saw several phones recording the confrontation. 30 years of corruption, I said clearly. How many lives ruined, how many careers destroyed? "You have no idea what you're dealing with," Conway threatened. "Actually, we do." Stella nodded toward the entrance, where federal agents were now appearing. What happened next was chaos. Conway tried to run but didn't make it far. Blake broke down immediately, offering to cooperate. Board members scattered like startled horses. In the midst of it all, Stella pulled me close and kissed me, right there in front of everyone. Cameras flashed, capturing the moment. "That's going to make headlines." I laughed against her lips. "Good," she smiled. "No more hiding." Later, after giving our statements, we stood on the grandstand balcony. Below us, agents were leading Conway and Blake away in handcuffs. "Your father's testimony helped seal it," I told Stella, watching her watch the scene below. 30 years of guilt, she said softly. Finally over. My phone buzzed with messages from journalists wanting comments. Our relationship was now public knowledge, splashed across social media alongside the corruption scandal. "Having second thoughts?" I asked, suddenly uncertain. She turned to me, backlit by the track lights. "About you? Never." We left the gala hand in hand, ignoring the stares and whispers. In the parking lot, Stella stopped suddenly. "Move in with me," she said. "What?" "Life's too short for fear. Move in with me." I answered with a kiss, not caring who saw. Behind us, the track lights illuminated empty stands where tomorrow, races would run clean for the first time in decades. "Is that a yes?" she asked, smiling against my lips. "That's a hell yes." My phone buzzed again, the network executive. Probably calling to reinstate me now that the truth was out. It could wait. Right now, all that mattered was this moment, this woman, this victory we'd won together. The night air carried the scent of hay and victory, and somewhere in the stables, Storm Chaser whinnied, a sound of freedom if I ever heard one. The Racing Commission hearing room was packed. 3 weeks after the gala, the full investigation had revealed decades of corruption reaching far beyond Richmond Downs. I sat beside Stella, our hands clasped under the table. Her father had just finished his testimony, his voice steady as he detailed 30 years of threats and cover-ups. "Ms. Reed," the commission chairwoman called, "please take the stand." Walking forward, I felt Stella's eyes on me. The evidence we'd gathered filled boxes on the conference table, betting records, photos, Sarah Martinez's meticulous files. "Please tell the commission how you discovered the irregularities," the chairwoman prompted. I told them everything, from the mysterious package to the threats, from the swimming lessons where Stella and I fell in love to the final confrontation at the gala. "And you continued investigating despite the threats to your career?" "Some things are more important than career safety," I replied, glancing at Stella. The hearing lasted hours. When it ended, the commission's decision was unanimous. Conway and Blake faced criminal charges, while the entire racing board would be restructured. Outside the hearing room, reporters swarmed us. "Ms. Reed, will you return to broadcasting?" Before I could answer, my phone rang, the network president himself. "We'd like to offer you a promotion," he said. "Head racing commentator for the entire Eastern Seaboard circuit." I looked at Stella, who was already smiling. She knew what this meant to me. "Yes," I said. "But I have one condition." That evening, we celebrated at the track. I stood in my familiar commentary booth, but everything felt different. Cleaner, freer. Testing, I spoke into the microphone. This is Lana Reed, coming to you live from Richmond Downs, where today marks a new chapter in racing history. Below, Stella prepared Storm Chaser for his victory lap. My condition to the network had been simple. I would only call races where the integrity was guaranteed. They'd agreed immediately, eager to rebuild their reputation. And in the trainer's circle, we have Stella Mitchell, recently appointed to the new Racing Integrity Board. She looked up at my mention of her name, blowing me a kiss. The crowd cheered. They'd followed our story in the papers, embracing us as symbols of change. After the ceremony, I found her in the stables. "How does it feel, Miss Board Member?" "Almost as good as this," she replied, pulling me into a kiss. We were interrupted by my assistant. "Your Industry Achievement Award arrived," she said, handing me a package. The inscription read, "For outstanding courage in sports journalism." They forgot to mention the outstanding girlfriend who made it all possible, I joked. Stella took the award, placing it on a shelf in her office, our office now, since I'd moved most of my work there. "Remember our first swimming lesson?" she asked, wrapping her arms around me. "When we were both terrified of water? How could I forget? Look at us now." She was right. We'd faced our fears of water, of truth, of love, and emerged stronger. My phone buzzed with congratulations from Sarah Martinez. "Justice looks good on you both." Later that night, watching Stella sleep beside me in what was now our bed, I thought about how far we'd come. From two scared swimmers to lovers who'd broken open a decades-old conspiracy. Tomorrow, I would call more races. Stella would train more champions. But we'd do it honestly, openly, together. The night was quiet, except for distant horse sounds and Stella's soft breathing. I pulled her closer, thankful for that first mysterious package that had started everything. Sometimes the biggest victories come from the smallest beginnings. Sometimes love shows up in chlorinated water and refuses to let go. And sometimes, just sometimes, justice and love win the race together. 1 year later, I stood at the edge of the pool where it all began, watching Stella teach a beginner's swimming class. She'd taken over the program, turning our story of overcoming fear into inspiration for others. "Remember," she told her students, "everyone starts in the shallow end." I smiled, remembering our own clumsy beginnings. Now we swam laps together every morning before heading to the track. The corruption scandal had changed Richmond Downs forever. Conway and Blake were serving time, while Sarah Martinez had been honored for her decades of record-keeping. Stella's father, finally free from his burden, had started mentoring young trainers again. "Ready for your big moment?" Stella asked, joining me after her class. Today was special, my first time broadcasting the Kentucky Derby. But first, we had something more important to do. We stood at the deep end, where neither of us would have ventured a year ago. Other swimmers gathered around, many who'd followed our journey from the beginning. "Together?" I asked. "Always," she replied. We dove in, surfacing to applause. It wasn't just about swimming anymore. It was about facing fears, fighting for truth, choosing love over safety. Later, at the track, I prepared for the Derby broadcast. Stella had 3 horses running today, including Storm Chaser's first offspring. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, my voice carrying across the nation. "Welcome to a new era in racing." Below, Stella caught my eye from the trainer's circle. We'd moved in together months ago, turning her house into our home, filling it with photos of horses and swimming medals we'd earned together. The race was spectacular. Stella's youngest horse, Truth Seeker, took first place. Poetic justice, we called it. That evening, we walked the empty track together, our footprints joining countless others in the dirt. "I have something for you," Stella said, pulling out a small box. Inside was a key to a new stable she'd bought, big enough for both our dreams. "Marry me?" she asked simply. I answered with a kiss that said everything words couldn't. We celebrated in the pool where we first met, floating under the stars, no longer afraid of deep water or deep feelings. "Think anyone else will find love in swimming lessons?" I asked. "Maybe," she laughed. "But they'll have to write their own story." My phone buzzed, another award nomination for our exposé. But the real prize was right here, holding my hand as we floated together. Tomorrow would bring new races, new challenges, new victories. But tonight, in this pool where two terrified swimmers had become something more, we were exactly where we needed to be. "I love you," I whispered. "I love you too," she replied. Deep end and all. We stayed there, floating under Richmond stars, two women who'd found each other in the shallow end and built something deep enough to last forever. Some stories end with justice, some end with love. The best ones, like ours, end with both. And this was just the beginning.